The steel door swung open with a soft click that echoed through the marble hallway. Alexander Pierce stood motionless in his study, staring at the wall safe he'd just unlocked, his jaw tight with calculated intent. Inside, neatly stacked bundles of $100 bills sat beside velvet boxes containing diamond cufflinks, a Rolex presidential watch, and his late mother's emerald necklace. $50,000 in cash. Maybe more. He stepped back, leaving everything exposed, visible, vulnerable. "Let's see who you really are," he muttered to the empty room, his voice bitter with cynicism. Alexander Pierce hadn't built his empire by trusting people. At 46, the tech billionaire had learned that lesson the hard way, carved into his soul by every betrayal, every lawsuit, every smiling face that turned serpentine when money entered the equation. His ex-wife had cleaned out their joint account before serving divorce papers. His former CFO had embezzled $2 million before disappearing to the Cayman Islands. Even his own brother had tried stealing company shares through forged documents. Trust, Alexander had concluded, was a luxury only fools could afford. 3 weeks ago, his head of security discovered that someone had been stealing from the household accounts. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. The investigation pointed toward the staff, but without proof, Alexander's hands were tied. His business partner, Marcus, had laughed over drinks at the country club. "You're too soft, Alex. These people see your wealth as their opportunity. They don't respect you, they tolerate you for a paycheck." Those words festered. That night, lying awake in his king-sized bed in a mansion that felt more like a mausoleum, Alexander devised his test. He would leave a safe open. He would install hidden cameras. And he would finally have proof that his cynicism was justified, that humanity was exactly as rotten as he believed. The cameras were tiny, invisible, positioned perfectly to capture every angle of his study. He'd activated them before leaving the safe open that Tuesday morning, then retreated to his upstairs office to watch the live feed on his laptop. His housekeeper would arrive at 9 o'clock. Her name was Amaka Okafor, and she'd worked for him for 8 months, quiet and efficient, always punctual, never complaining. But Alexander had learned not to trust quiet competence. The most dangerous thieves, he believed, were the ones who smiled while they robbed you blind. At 8:57, he heard the front door open. His pulse quickened. The camera feed showed Amaka entering through the service entrance, dressed in her usual simple grey uniform, her black hair pulled back in a neat bun. She carried her cleaning supplies in a plastic caddy, humming something soft and melodic as she moved through the ground floor. Amaka Okafor was 32 years old, though the weight she carried made her seem older. She'd immigrated from Lagos 5 years ago on a work visa, taking whatever job she could find to send money home. Her mother was diabetic and needed medication the family couldn't afford. Her younger brother was in university, brilliant and determined, relying on Amaka's contributions to stay enrolled. Her sister was raising 3 children alone after her husband abandoned them. Every dollar Amaka earned was already spoken for before she received it. She lived in a cramped studio apartment in the Bronx, shared with 2 other women, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. She ate rice and beans most days, saving every penny she could. Working for Mr. Pierce was the best job she'd ever had. He paid well, $15 an hour plus bonuses, and the work wasn't backbreaking. She cleaned his study on Tuesdays and Fridays, dusted the library, organized his files, and tried to remain invisible. She'd learned that wealthy people preferred their help to be invisible. At 9:15, Amaka pushed open the study door with her hip, balancing her cleaning supplies. She'd planned to dust the bookshelves first, then vacuum the Persian rug, then wipe down Mr. Pierce's mahogany desk. But as she entered, something caught her eye. Something wrong. The safe was open. Amaka froze, her heart lurching. The wall safe, which was always closed, always locked, now gaped open like a mouth revealing its secrets. She could see money inside. Lots of money. Jewelry that sparkled even in the morning light filtering through the curtains. Her breath caught in her throat. Upstairs, Alexander leaned closer to his laptop screen, his fingers gripping the edge of his desk. "Here we go," he whispered. Amaka set down her cleaning caddy slowly, her hands trembling. She glanced toward the door, then back at the safe. Her mind raced. Had Mr. Pierce forgotten to close it? Was this a mistake? Should she close it herself? Should she tell him? What if he thought she'd opened it? She took a step closer, drawn by a force she couldn't name. The money was right there. Bundled stacks of bills. She'd never seen so much cash in one place. In her entire life, she'd never held more than a few $100s at once. This was thousands. Tens of thousands. Her mother's medication cost $300 a month. Her brother's tuition was due next week. Her sister needed help with rent. Amaka's hand lifted, trembling, reaching toward the safe. Her fingers hovered inches from the money. Alexander's eyes widened on the screen. Do it, he breathed. Show me who you really are. But Amaka's hand stopped. It hung suspended in the air, shaking, then slowly curled into a fist. She pulled her arm back and pressed her fist against her chest, over her heart. Her eyes closed. Lord, she whispered, her voice barely audible, may I never touch what isn't mine. Temptation comes in beautiful forms, but help me see the ugly consequences. My mother taught me that stolen bread tastes like poison. Give me strength. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Not tears of sadness, but of release, of choosing peace over panic. She opened her eyes and wiped her face with the back of her hand, then looked at the safe with something like pity. Upstairs, Alexander's mouth had gone dry. He stared at the screen, unable to process what he was witnessing. Amaka moved to Mr. Pierce's desk and found a notepad and pen. Her handwriting was careful, precise, each letter formed with the conscientiousness of someone who'd learned English as a third language. Dear Mr. Pierce, she wrote. I noticed your safe was left open this morning. I have closed and locked it for your security. Please be more careful with your valuables. With respect and prayers for your well-being, Amaka Okafor. She tore off the page, folded it neatly, and placed it on his desk where he'd be sure to see it. Then she returned to the safe, gently closed the heavy door, and spun the lock. She picked up her cleaning supplies and continued her work, dusting the bookshelves, humming her soft melody as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Alexander sat paralyzed, staring at the screen. His elaborate trap had caught nothing but his own assumptions. The cynicism he'd wrapped around himself like armor suddenly felt suffocating. He watched Amaka work for another 10 minutes, her movements calm and methodical, before he finally closed his laptop and sat back in his chair. His hands were shaking. For the first time in years, Alexander Pierce felt something he'd thought he'd buried forever. Shame. Deep, burning shame that started in his chest and spread through his entire body like wildfire. He'd set up this test believing he would confirm the worst about human nature, about the people who worked for him, about Amaka. Instead, he'd revealed the worst about himself. He thought about his ex-wife, who'd left him not because she was greedy but because he'd become cold and suspicious, interrogating her about every purchase, every friend, every moment she spent away from his watchful eye. He thought about the employees he'd fired over the years, some guilty, others merely convenient scapegoats for his paranoia. He thought about his brother, who'd forged those documents not out of malice but out of desperation after Alexander had refused to help him through bankruptcy, choosing suspicion over family. The safe hadn't tested Amaka's integrity. It had tested his capacity for trust, and he had failed spectacularly. That evening, Alexander couldn't concentrate on work. He kept replaying the footage, watching Amaka's prayer, her tears, her careful note. Around 7 o'clock, he made a decision. He walked downstairs to the kitchen where Amaka was finishing her duties, wiping down the countertops before leaving for the day. Amaka, he said quietly. She turned, startled. Mr. Pierce rarely spoke directly to her beyond good morning or thank you. Yes, sir. Could you come to my study for a moment? Fear flashed across her face. She followed him silently, her mind racing through possibilities. Had she done something wrong? Was she being fired? As they entered the study, she saw her note still sitting on his desk. Alexander picked it up, holding it between his fingers like something precious and fragile. You found the safe open this morning? Yes, sir. Her voice was barely above a whisper. You could have taken everything inside. $50,000 in cash. Jewelry worth hundreds of thousands. You could have walked out of here and I'd never have seen you again. Amaka's eyes widened. Sir, I would never. I know. Alexander's voice cracked. That's what shocked me. Amaka, I have to confess something. I left that safe open deliberately. I installed cameras. I was testing you. The color drained from Amaka's face. Testing me? But why? Have I done something to make you distrust me? No. Alexander ran his hand through his hair, looking older than his years. No, you haven't. This wasn't about you. It was about me. About my broken ability to trust anyone. I've been betrayed so many times that I started believing everyone was a thief waiting for an opportunity. I wanted proof that I was right. Instead, you proved I was wrong. Silence filled the study. Amaka's hands twisted together, processing his words. Finally, she spoke, her voice stronger now. Mr. Pierce, I grew up poor. Very poor. meetings on time every day. His gardener, Paolo, who kept the grounds immaculate. His chef, Sandra, who prepared meals he barely tasted. His security guard, Raymond, who worked night shifts to support his disabled wife. His personal assistant, Michelle, who managed his chaotic schedule. And Amaka, sitting quietly at the end, still processing yesterday's conversation. "I owe all of you an apology," Alexander began. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped the back of a chair. "For years, I've treated this household like a business transaction. I've kept you at arm's length, suspicious and cold, more concerned with protecting my wealth than recognizing your humanity. Yesterday, something happened that opened my eyes. And I realized I've been wrong. Not just wrong, I've been cruel in my distance." He paused, looking at Amaka. "This woman taught me a lesson about integrity that I should have learned long ago. So here's what's changing, effective immediately. Everyone's salary is increasing by 30%. You'll all receive full health insurance, paid vacation, and sick leave. Maria, you've been asking for help with your daughter's medical bills. They're covered. James, your son's college tuition. It's covered. Paolo, the visa issues you've been dealing with. I'm hiring an immigration lawyer. Sandra, Raymond, Michelle, everyone. If you need something, you tell me. This house is not a corporation. It's a home, and you're not employees. You're people I've been honored to work with, even if I've been too blind to show it." The room was silent. Then Maria started crying. James cleared his throat roughly. Paolo stared at Alexander like he was seeing him for the first time. "There's one more thing," Alexander continued. "I'm starting a foundation to help immigrant workers, particularly women who come to this country seeking better opportunities. We'll provide legal assistance, education grants, and emergency financial support. I want Amaka to help me run it. If she's willing." Every head turned toward Amaka. She sat frozen, her hands clasped in her lap, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Mr. Pierce," she managed, "I don't know anything about running a foundation. You know about integrity, courage, and putting others first. That's all the qualification I need. Will you help me?" Amaka nodded, unable to speak. The meeting ended with hugs and tears, with disbelief and gratitude. As the staff filed out, Maria stopped beside Alexander. "Sir, what changed?" He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes for the first time in years. "I stopped looking for the worst in people and finally saw the best." Over the next 3 months, Alexander's life transformed in ways he'd never imagined. The foundation launched with significant funding, helping 30 immigrant families in its first month alone. Amaka proved to be a natural leader, combining compassion with organizational skills Alexander hadn't realized she possessed. She interviewed applicants with empathy and wisdom, never judging, always seeking to understand and help. Working alongside her, Alexander learned about the immigrant experience, about families separated by borders and bureaucracy, about people working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive, about the quiet dignity of those who sacrificed everything for their children's futures. His cynicism melted like ice in sunlight, replaced by something he'd forgotten he was capable of feeling: hope. His business partner Marcus noticed the change. Over lunch one afternoon, Marcus set down his fork and stared at Alexander. "What happened to you?" "You're different." "I am different," Alexander agreed. "I let someone teach me that I was wrong." "Wrong about what?" "About everything that matters." Marcus shook his head, chuckling. "This is about that maid, isn't it? The one you tested with the safe. Her name is Amaka. And yes, it's about her. She taught me that integrity isn't circumstantial. It's not about what you do when people are watching. It's about who you are when you think no one will ever know." She had every reason to take that money, every justification. But she chose peace over profit. How many of us can say that? Not many, Marcus admitted quietly. Maybe none of us. The foundation grew. Amaka's brother completed his engineering degree and got a job at a tech company, partly due to connections Alexander made. Her mother's health stabilized with consistent medication and care. Her sister moved into a better apartment with reliable childcare nearby. Amaka herself moved out of the cramped studio into a modest but comfortable one-bedroom apartment, her first real home in America. 6 months after the test, Alexander held a company-wide event at his corporation's headquarters. 500 employees filled the auditorium as he took the stage. He'd never been comfortable with public speaking, preferring boardrooms to spotlights, but today was important. "I want to tell you a story," he began. "About the day I tested someone's integrity and ended up testing my own humanity instead." He told them everything. About the open safe, the hidden cameras, his cynicism and suspicion. About Amaka's prayer, her tears, her choice. About the shame he'd felt and the transformation that followed. The auditorium was silent except for his voice, amplified and echoing. "I've spent my career believing that success meant protecting yourself from betrayal," he said. "Building walls, maintaining distance, trusting no one. I thought that made me strong. But strength isn't isolation. Strength is having the courage to trust again after you've been hurt. Strength is choosing to believe in people's goodness even when you've seen their worst. This woman, Amaka Okafor, showed me that." He gestured toward the wings of the stage. Amaka emerged, hesitant and shy, clearly uncomfortable with attention. The audience erupted in applause. She walked to Alexander's side, and he took her hand. "Amaka didn't just pass a test that day," he said. "She held up a mirror and forced me to see who I'd become. And she did it with grace, with dignity, with prayer. She reminded me that integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. But here's what she didn't know: I was watching. God was watching. And what we witnessed was nothing short of remarkable." The applause grew louder. Amaka's face was wet with tears, overwhelmed by the recognition, by the journey that had brought her from that terrifying morning in the study to this moment on stage. "The foundation we've started together has already helped hundreds of families," Alexander continued. "But more than that, it's helped me. It's reminded me why I built this company in the first place. Not to accumulate wealth, but to create value. Not to protect myself from people, but to serve them. Amaka is now our foundation director, and I couldn't be prouder or more grateful." As the event concluded and people mingled, a journalist approached Alexander. "Mr. Pierce, this is quite a story. What would you say to people who might be facing their own test of integrity right now?" Alexander thought carefully. "I'd say that the test isn't whether you can resist temptation. The test is whether you're honest about who you want to be." Amaka could have taken that money and probably never been caught. But she would have known. And she valued her peace of mind, her relationship with God, her self-respect more than any amount of cash. That's not weakness. That's the strongest choice a person can make. That evening, Alexander sat in his study, the same study where everything had changed. The safe was closed now, locked as it should be. But he'd removed the hidden cameras. He didn't need them anymore. His phone buzzed with a text from Amaka: "Thank you for believing in me, Mr. Pierce. But more importantly, thank you for believing in people again." He smiled and typed back, "Thank you for giving me a reason to." Some tests reveal character. Others heal broken hearts. And sometimes, rarely, miraculously, both happen at once. Alexander Pierce had designed a test to prove humanity's corruption. Instead, he discovered its redemption, delivered not through grand gestures or philosophical arguments, but through a quiet woman's prayer and a simple act of integrity when she thought no one would ever know. The real shock wasn't what Amaka had done. The real shock was discovering that goodness still existed in a world he'd convinced himself was rotten. And in finding that goodness, he'd found his way back to his own. Before you go, if this story moved you, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of integrity and kindness. Drop a comment below telling us, would you have passed the test of the open safe? What would you have done in Amaka's position? Your thoughts matter to us. And if you believe this message needs to reach more people, hit that share button. Sometimes the stories we need most are the ones that challenge us to be better.